Why is it that we don't see cryptids that people claim to see, like the Bigfoot or the little people? Is it because they can escape to another dimension? Or is there something else going on? Today, I have a fellow Xenohunters researcher with me, Haleksandre Hersir.
Hello.
All right, Alex, I wanted to talk to you today about this subject that I've been researching quite a bit, and I've talked to you a lot about this online, about interdimensional travel and interdimensional beings. I found this interesting video with a Native American talking about Sasquatch and how they hide, how they're able to evade human contact, and I wanted you to check it out.
Well, we actually have a song. We say we can sing them up. And some of my apprentices, sometimes I use the Sasquatch. I teach my apprentices how to see them. Sasquatch, we say, are what you call, we say they mind speak. You call it telepathy, and that's their defense mechanism. Like, they're so strong with it. Like, you can be walking down through the woods and one can be standing there and you can look at him and he can make you think that he's a tree. He can make you think that he's a rock or a boulder and things. And one of the ways that I teach my apprentices to look for them, I remember one group in particular, I told them, I said, look out there at all those trees out there. And they looked out there and they said, yes, grandfather, so what? And I said, one of them's a Sasquatch. And of course right away it was like, which one? And I said, well, what you need to do, I said, is you need to count the trees. And so they got their pencil and papers out and they counted the trees and everything, and stuff, and made their little maps and stuff. And then, the next day eventually they went out and was able to look, and they were able to find which tree was not there then, and then they knew that was the one that was the Sasquatch. Now once you learn how to look for them and see them, then you can see through that facade. But you have to be adept enough, and you have to be trained well enough, and you have to be sensitive enough to where that when you look out there, you actually look through that and things.
I talked with that Native American woman, and she said she saw dogs, and they were Sasquatch, and then they were dogs, and like it just happened. And then I heard stories about people seeing little people. They see this little man and it helps them, it shows them the way, and then all of a sudden next thing they know it's a boulder. Like, it's a boulder, it's not a little person. Like there's a little person there and next thing it's a rock. Another example I heard was there was 3 people in the same area who saw a leprechaun. 2 of them saw the leprechaun and they described it the exact same way, but the third person saw nothing. So that is strange. Is there a certain perception that you have, like, let's say a certain type of concentration? The monk said that 1-point concentration or learning to meditate could train you to see what you normally can't see. So if you can learn to focus your mind on one specific point or one topic, if another thought intrudes over it, you're so used to focusing your mind that the other thought won't be able to come. Like, you can just stay focused on one. So when they try to block your sight with another
you filter
thought,
it.
You could see right through it. You don't let it block your sight, so you can still see the truth.
Yeah, no. This is constant chatter in the mind, and we're always thinking about other stuff. But
so it's easy for
another good trick is to like try and be present, like here and now. You're more likely to notice other things because you're present. You're here in the moment.
I was wondering about clairvoyant people. Is there a logical reason behind why they're able to see things and other people are not? So some people encounter Bigfoot all the time. Like, oh, I saw Bigfoot. Oh, I saw Bigfoot. People are like, I didn't see nothing. Like, I've been out there. You
mean like them being together side by side?
No, like, I mean, some people just see Bigfoot a lot. They just always are seeing weird stuff. Like, oh, I just saw a gray. Oh, I saw this. Oh, I saw that. Like, you meet some people who've seen paranormal this, paranormal that, paranormal this. They see little people. They see Bigfoot. And you got to wonder, what's going on with these people? Why are they able to see it in others? And if they're able to put a psychic mask on, they have this telepathy, they have this power to make you see what they want. And the only way to see through it is if you have a certain state of mind. Like, able to concentrate better, or able to filter out thoughts better. and most people can't do it. So we think these people who can see them are these hokey dumbass, like, oh, you're okay, you see something there. Okay, buddy, I don't see like you. There ain't nothing there, dude.
Yeah.
Like, you're freaking crazy. But in reality, there is something there, but the person who can see it just doesn't have that, is able to concentrate in a different way where intrusive thoughts can't block their sight.
ESP comes into play here for sure.
People who practice meditation, Buddhists and stuff, and they encounter Bigfoot and they see all this stuff and they're more aware of these things, I just think that the psychic trick to block them from seeing it is not working on them because of the way they train their mind. And what if when they go invisible, that's the same thing? What if they're not actually invisible? What if they just make you think that they're invisible and they're actually there?
Well, we're getting into some deep water here.
But then it doesn't make sense, because how would a little person or a Bigfoot get inside a locked house if they were just appearing invisible?
That's what I mean. Yeah, there's too many stories, and from all over the world that corroborate things like them, being able to go through things and appear out of nowhere, and are they able to make you think they're invisible? I don't know. Maybe it goes deeper than just being able to make you think they're not there.
Yeah, man, it just really bothers me. Like, I used to wonder about little people, like, okay, how could it be partially transparent? That's a ghost. That's like a spirit or something, you know what I mean? But then why would it be catching fish? That's like a physical thing.
I've actually been interested in ufology for ever since I was a kid, and there's lots of stories of crafts that shift in and out. Some of them instantly go blank, like they don't fly away, they just pop out of this dimension. But there have been sightings, numerous sightings of ships that gradually, like sometimes they're like in between here and not here, so that they're like translucid. They seem to sometimes be in between, like the frequency of the physical world and the frequency of the other manifestation, whatever you want to call it. I call them dimensions because you have the 3 dimensions where length, width,
yeah, but it would
height.
mean there'd be different properties. Like, it'd be a completely different reality. It'd be wonky and weird. Like the fourth
Who's
dimension.
Who's to say it's not? I mean, in the fourth dimension is described as being the property of time, which is like another dimension that you have length, height, width, and time.
So what I got from the fourth dimension, from some science stuff I've been reading, is like each section of time at the smallest degree, each frame, like a screenshot of the universe for each second in time, or each millisecond or picosecond or whatever. When you put all those together, that's the fourth dimension. That's another unit of measurement, time, forward and back. So each point represents a distance or whatever. So if it was a fourth dimensional being, then wouldn't it mean it could just walk forward or backward in time? That'd be like godly powerful.
That I don't know. I don't know.
Let me go to the dinosaur age real quick. Just walk to the dinosaurs. Oh, I'm going to go to the future end of mankind where they have advanced technology now. You know what I mean?
I suppose we could look at it like it from different perspectives, but until we can go and touch it ourselves, we can't know how this stuff works unless
I've heard stories of shamans that could open portals and go to other worlds. So if a human like us could do it and they could do it, then what makes them different from us? I mean, if we have that ability too, then it's not special or unique to them. It means they're not some weird creature that has abilities beyond us.
What is weird? I mean, it might be as natural as anything else. Just that some of us are sort of not,
True. Or it might be the shamans that we're only seeing, the ones that know how to mess with that stuff. One of the things that bothers me about a lot of paranormal talk that I read in forums and see videos on is they talk about little people or Bigfoot, and they say, oh, they're the fifth dimension, oh, they're the sixth dimension, oh, they're higher dimensional beings. Like, how do you know what number dimension it is? Like, do you see a number 6 on their forehead when they come here? Like, you don't freaking, like, there's no way to know the number of dimension they're from. And then on top of that, when you get into like the 5th dimension and the 4th dimension, the 5th dimension is supposed to be probability. So all parallel universes of possibilities that branch out are what the 5th dimension is, and being able to travel between all probability. So let's say in one dimension you're a rock star and you're freaking world famous. In another dimension you're the president or the prime minister of Canada or whatever. And Hitler won the war in one dimension. Like, all probability, so there's infinite probabilities of parallel universes. That's what the 5th dimension is supposed to be. So why would a being be 5th dimensional? It makes no sense. Like, oh, I'm a 5th dimensional being. I walk here into to all probable actions to every consequence. Like, okay, you do that.
See, it's funny. It's kind of funny because I personally, when I looked into and studied Gnosticism and other philosophies and was very interested in what dimensions are, I personally learned that it was the 5th dimension is where your thoughts and emotions are. Like, it's the realm of thoughts and emotions, and that's
Wouldn't that
where
just
we
be a different definition, like their own definition that they made up? Like, it's fine to have your own definition, but like it clashes with the scientific definition of probability, like what the 5th dimension is supposed to be. You know what I mean? Like, oh, let's make okay. Well, scientists say it's that. Well, I say it's the realm of thought. You know what I mean? It's just they're saying their own thing. Like, okay, no, it's that. Like, why is it like?
Well,
that? Why do they make up their own definitions?
who you
The
mean, like
Gnostic-
scientists?
Gnostic people, Gnostic or whatever. They're like,
Not just Gnostics. They're talking about like old
yeah, but why
ancient
would the ancient
knowledge.
people talk about dimensions? Like, oh, there's different dimensions. I know they talked about different worlds, like Norse mythology. This is there's 9 worlds, and so did the
Yeah.
Olympiacs. They said, oh, there's multiple worlds. They didn't say, oh, it's the 5th dimension. Oh, it's number 6 dimension. Oh, it's number 7 dimension. Even the Norse said Asgard, Elfenheim, the land of the frost giants, the land of the fire giants, the land of the dwarves. You know, all these places. They didn't say number 5, number 4, number 3. They said there are some that were more advanced and more powerful, but they didn't say that they're like a higher dimension or a higher world. They just said they were very powerful. You know what I think it is? I think that scientists derive the word dimension to describe different units of measurement, like width, depth, time, parallel realities, different universes.
And that's all fine.
Then other people seeing Quantum Leap and Sliders and these other shows are like, oh, a different dimension means a different world. And then they think, and then they attribute the word dimension.
No. They're talking about parallel worlds.
I know,
which
but
is
they're like, oh, we went to another dimension. In reality, like, if you go to a parallel world, or let's say I go to the world of the giants and it's flesh and blood like us, that's the 3D, but it's a different reality. It's like a different place. It's not here. It's a different, I don't even know why it would be a different reality. Maybe a different frequency, like you said, but it wouldn't necessarily be a different dimension. It'd still be 3D length, width, and depth. You can jump up in the air and land. There wouldn't be weird properties of physics where you're like floating around and stretching all the time or whatever.
there might be in some of them.
I'm sure there's worlds like that, but then why would a little person or a Bigfoot come here and eat food and take dumps and crap all over take craps or whatever and kill people, and then be this weird floaty thing that we can't comprehend also?
Oh, yeah. I see your point.
Because why would they need to eat? Like, why would they follow our laws?
What I have heard, because I've looked into those kinds of questions myself. From my understanding is that, like, anything that exists in another dimension, when they take physical form, they're ruled by the same laws that all animals and us. Those are the laws that are required for life in this dimension.
That's a good theory, but it doesn't make sense in a way, because the little person in the story that that boy told me, the green one, it hunted a fish and then it ran away with it and jumped into a portal.
Okay.
Why would it take food to another dimension if it's going
maybe?
to...
Okay, but you do realize that a lot of so-called aliens use other dimensions simply to move from one place to another. Maybe he used a portal to go somewhere else,
I think-
not necessarily.
That's what I'm saying. I think there's multiple 3D dimensions, and these are all physical beings like us, but they're from another reality, like another world, like a parallel universe or something. I don't think they're not 3D. I think they use 4D or 5D to travel, but then they're not actually 5D. My friend was in Fairbanks during a fair. It was like fair.
Is that why it's called Fairbanks?
No,
It's
no,
called
no.
Fairbanks because he was at a fair.
Anyway, she was at some kind of fair, right, with carnival stuff going on, right? And she was with her kids and her friends, and then all of a sudden, everybody around her froze. Everything just went dead quiet, and there was a UFO directly above her. It was like she was.
Are you saying they stopped moving completely?
Everything froze.
Like everybody just
everything
that?
froze like in time, and she was the only one who
Wow.
wasn't frozen. And
Wow.
she was standing there like looking around like what the hell, and then she noticed this huge craft above her, and she was directly in the middle of the circle. So let's say it's a circular craft and there's a center point, and she was directly in that middle point, and she was looking up at it like what the hell, and like freaking out because everyone was frozen. She like tried pushing them and they're like frozen. They like wouldn't move at all. And then all of a sudden the UFO just completely vanished and everyone resumed moving like nothing happened. So I know that gravity influences time because they talk about satellites having different...
They're linked together apparently.
So if,
yeah.
if the UFOs are using anti-gravity drive, and the anti-gravity drive, in order to manipulate gravity, also manipulates time, maybe that would explain it. And maybe there's a vortex on the top and bottom of the UFO where there's a time distortion also, and if it flies over you and you touch that distortion zone, you become frozen in their time also, but once you move out of it, you return to normal time.
But nothing else happened. You're saying that the UFO was there, but they didn't interact with her or anything like that.
If they did interact with her, her memory's wiped and she doesn't know what happened.
Okay.
If they
Oh,
did.
wow.
And the reason why I bring this up with interdimensional beings is because, as you're probably aware of, or maybe you're not, a lot of gray sightings and little people sightings, they talk about their movements in a shifting, jerking pattern, almost like
Yes.
they exist one place and they're there, then they're there, then they're there, then they're
Yeah.
there. Kind of like The Ring, like the scary ass monster. You know what I mean?
And sometimes they're just floating and they go right through walls, objects. That stuff manifests itself in so many different ways. But I've heard what you're talking
But
about.
you gotta
Yeah.
wonder, okay, what is the science behind the reasoning for them to jerk through time like that? There has to be a reason for it. It can't just be, oh, it's magic. Like, that's just a cop-out BS answer, you know what I mean? Oh, it's magic. I'm just using magic.
You know what you said earlier about the UFO and the girl saw everyone frozen. What if she was in that bubble at that moment? And if she were to run like 5 meters away and then that UFO went away, to all those people who were frozen, she would have appeared to have jerked from one place to another like instantaneously.
Yeah, I don't
You know
think
what I
that,
mean?
I think their perspective is going to look normal, like they're just moving, but what I'm wondering what in terms of interdimensional travel, because let's say the fourth dimension is time, what would cause something to jerk around in time like that? And also, what would cause something to freeze time like the UFOs apparently are able to freeze it? Why would that be? I don't understand this yet. We shouldn't even talk about this. And another thing is that two people that were abducted by little people, they both said that they're put in force fields so they couldn't escape. And then when they traveled to their other world or their underground world, everything moved by extraordinarily fast, like a whole bunch of images, and then all of a sudden they're somewhere else. But it was like they're moving super fast in a bubble, a force field, and then they're somewhere else. So one of the stories was from elderly lady that didn't want to share the story publicly because she got burned by somebody else in the past. And then the story that I read on the last video, interdimensional abductions with the boy, he was also put in a force field when he was taken to there, wherever. I'm just trying to understand how traveling between realms... Oh, I think I just figured it out. They have to manipulate the dimensions in order to travel between dimensions. They have to manipulate. So, let's say you visit the little people and they're in another realm, another reality, like a different dimension or a different reality, like a different world. In order to travel through there, you have to travel through a gate that messes with the fourth and fifth dimension. You're traveling through those dimensions. So that gate stretches time, and it stretches the other universe or whatever in order to open a hole so you can go between it, right? And the act of manipulating the fabric of the dimension of reality, the fourth dimension, makes it so it like compresses it or something. So when you visit the little people, you're walking through this gateway, and instead of them being at another time than us, the act of traveling there manipulates time. You get what I'm saying?
Not sure.
So in order to travel between, like, let's say a different parallel reality, you have to mess with 4D stuff for the time. You have to mess with time and something else in order to travel there. You get what I mean?
Well, I've just heard that you have to raise the vibratory frequency to get, because apparently fourth and fifth dimension are higher dimensions, so you have your frequency.
What do you mean,
has
like
to,
shaking fast? You're like, oh.
well, no. It's like the frequency, the frequency of if you were to go with your physical body, frequency of your body has to be raised somehow.
You know how you raise the frequency of your body? By cooking yourself. That makes things vibrate.
Yeah, but
faster.
we're not talking about like that though. We're talking about like metaphysical stuff where the like even those spaceships that can apparently shift from here to another.
Is there stories of UFO abductions with people going forward in time? Like the Fae? Like, let's say they get taken to the alien world, and does time change? Like years later they come back and it seemed like 20 minutes to them?
There are stories that I personally have heard that, that someone being taken and they're a certain age and reappear many years later, decades later, and they're the same age.
From UFOs?
But I think so, yeah.
Oh, dude, okay, I'm going to tell a story that I heard. Okay, so this dude in Africa, some kid, his dad was like a general or something. He's playing in his backyard, and then some ship comes down, and people take him to this cool world with the high technology. He spends like a few hours there, and then when he comes back, 6 months has passed, and his dad spent millions and millions of dollars doing huge search parties for his son.
Oh, I've heard of that. Maybe you told the story.
So, yeah, that would be an example of just like the Fae. Someone will just say, oh, they're the Fae, they're the little people. No, they look like humans. Of some kind of people from another reality that took someone to their reality and time changed. So something to do with traveling to a different dimension, or not a different dimension, a different world, affects time, and it always affects it in one way. It never affects it going backwards. You never hear people going to the Fae and then being 100 years early before their mom was born.
Well, there are stories of people like Robert Dean. I won't get into who he is, but if people want to look him up, he was in the military in special access programs, and one interview he was talking about how he was taken to another planet by aliens that looked like us. They weren't like, they looked like people, except like they were amazingly brilliant, and like they had a really strong presence, and they didn't have defects like us. They weren't fat, ugly, and all that. Anyways, that's not the point I'm trying to make. He went there and spent apparently 3 weeks, he said, and when he came back, only 5 minutes had passed in this world. Yeah. So that's what he says. Look him up, Robert Dean. Interesting guy.
All right, so this is getting more confusing than I thought, because I thought interdimensional travel would influence the rate of time in a certain way because of the properties of the science and what they're doing. But it does kind of make it seem like there's a scientific reason with messing with this kind of stuff, messes with time.
Alien crafts, when you watch them, they can go like, 50,000 miles an hour and then on a dime turn or stop. I mean, you'd think the people inside would be like squished to the walls and stuff, but apparently no, because they are isolated inside in
Gravity bubble.
gravity. They have their own gravity, so
Yeah.
they're not affected by the outside gravity. And I think time could be exactly the same way.
Time
that
and
you-
gravity are intertwined because time changes
That's-
when gravity changes.
Yeah, like he said, 5 minutes had only passed in his case, and he was there. He said he was there for a good 3 weeks.
Is that the only
to live-
story like this?
No, I've heard other stories similar
Okay,
to
so
that.
that's interesting.
Can't.
The fact remains that traveling to these other places messes with time somehow. It's messing with time.
Messing, yeah, they might simply be able to manipulate it
How
the way they
want.
like. Yeah, how they want. Yeah,
Yeah, maybe.
it's
Then they'd be just being assholes then. Like, oh, let's take this kid and make him go 6 months in the future so their parents think he's dead.
I don't know if
Because we control how
You
much
heard?
time passes.
Yeah, so before you move on, I find it interesting, because you talked about the Norse, talking about 9 worlds, 9 realms, I think, and in Gnostics teachings we talk about, you hear about that there are 7 dimensions, and there are 9 infra dimensions. Infra worlds. So what you talk about when you mention the Norse and the 9 realms, and there's a book by Dante Alighieri. If you've heard of him, he wrote the Divine Comedy, and it talks about the 9 infra dimensions, the 9 realms that are also mentioned in Gnostics and Theosophy and other old philosophies, Atlantis and stuff like that. So it's interesting, like that maybe there's a parallel in between all those terms that people have been using, the 9 realms. What is that?
Worlds.
Yeah. So that
All right.
you might have dimensions and also realms. What does that all mean,
I think that the proper word would be realms or worlds and not dimensions.
It could be that there's both, man. We don't know.
I mean, dimensions is so different than a different world. Like, a dimension is like a whole different laws of physics. It's like totally weird. We don't really comprehend it well. Like, so the 5th dimension, as I said, is probability. It's all the probabilities. So if you're 5th dimensional, you're able to walk through probability. And then 6th dimension is probabilities of all the 5th dimension in each universe, but then a different universe. So one universe will have completely different laws of physics than another universe. So it'll be completely different. Science and everything won't work the same. Gravity will have different properties, whatever. It'll just be totally different. That's what the 6th
That's weird.
Seventh
I've heard
dimension
that
is- or sixth,
the
no,
6th
sixth.
dimension. I've heard that the 6th dimension was the causal dimension where everything originates from. Like
That's magic
Cause-
teaching, though.
cause
I'm
and
talking
effect.
about science. That's like magic perspective.
but we kind of touched that earlier, where that maybe when you get super advanced, magic and science are one.
I know, but even if they're one, those are 2 completely different definitions for the same word. That's what I'm saying. They have different meanings. So on the subject of dimensions, here in Alaska, I met a few hunters from a small village here who actually, they found a 20-foot stone door in the tundra. They're about 50 miles from their town upriver, and they found this huge 20-foot door, and it scared the people a little bit. It scared the guy. So he left, and he brought his brother back to show him the door, and the door wasn't there. It was just a rock face. And then other hunters from the same area told me the same thing. They saw the door, and they shot it with their gun. Not a mark on it. Nothing happened to it. So it's like some huge door that only appears at certain times. And it reminded me a lot of Lord of the Rings with the moon door, which appears during certain moon phases. Oh yeah, brings up a
I haven't seen those.
Okay,
movies.
so on Lord of the Rings,
Or read the books.
on Lord of the Rings, there's a door in a mountain that leads to the underground dwarven place, but it only appears when certain moonlight hits it, and it'll glow and it'll appear. And this door that the natives were talking about in this little village said that it's a 20-foot tall, huge door made of stone that isn't there all the time. It's only there during certain times. Another interesting aspect of the door only appearing during certain times is the fact that a lot of cryptids like dwarves or little people and Bigfoot, about 88% of sightings are seen during a full moon. So I decided to research full moons and look at what the difference is scientifically for the Earth during a full moon phase. And the only difference...
Well, for one thing, there's more light. That's why...
That's one thing. But another thing is that during a full moon, the moon is in the Earth's magnetotail. The magnetotail. So the moon becomes part of the Earth's magnetic field, and it changes the magnetic field of the Earth a little bit.
Are you saying it's closer?
It's in the magnetotail. It's just in a different position, I guess. I don't know.
Okay.
Yeah, so the magnetotail sticks out further. The Earth's magnetic field is a tail, and the moon is inside of it during the full moon phase only. And there's a lot of paranormal stuff attributed with the full moons. You know?
Oh yeah. I've talked to paramedics. I've talked to police officers, and because I wanted to know if it's true, the rumors you hear that a lot more going on during full moons, and they've told me. I've spoken to police officers a few times and asked them, there's a lot more crimes. People, have breakdowns a lot more, or there's a lot more accidents, a lot more crimes, and that's why the word lunatic, when you talk about a lunatic.
Oh wow, I didn't think of
Luna
that.
Luna means moon. Yeah.
Here's the interesting aspect of that though. So the moon is in the Earth's magnetotail, which changes the Earth's magnetic field. It alters it, so we have different electromagnetic energy on the Earth during that time.
Is that why the tide goes up?
I don't know. I didn't study the whole thing, but so basically the electromagnetic energy on Earth changes. Another thing that causes people to have mood changes is solar flares and geomagnetic storms. It's the same exact effect. People start to get more aggressive, crime rates go up, people break up more, blah, blah, blah. So I'm wondering, we're
sensitive to it.
Is the reason why these beings appear more during times of more electromagnetic energy on Earth, is that correlated with interdimensional travel? Because
I would personally think that sometimes because you have astrology, you have all kinds of sciences that utilize the positions of planets and certain hours of the day or night for certain rituals, and I think that there's a science to that, and it's very possible that it they can probably do it when it's not a full moon, but during a full moon it might facilitate certain things.
Have you ever heard the term that the veil is thin during the full moon? The veil between worlds?
Yeah, well,
that's what I've heard that. I've heard that from people. I don't know what it means, but I think it's an old saying, and there might be some fruit to it.
I've heard there's a special energy during the full moon, like the day before, during the full moon in the 3-day window, in those 3 days where the moon is... Especially on that specific day where the moon is like the fullest.
So the reason I bring this up about the moon phase and the door only appearing at certain times is I don't know what days they saw the door when it appeared, but was the door only appearing during a full moon time? Is that the time when portals are easy to open, or is that a door to a different dimension? Is that the time when if you go into the door can appear? Is that some ancient technology, a gate to another world, and is super old, and the only time you can see it and the only time it's available is during a certain electromagnetic activity on Earth? You know what I mean? There has to be a science behind it. And when I talk to some shamans, I have a bunch of shamanistic friends. She said that people with spiritual or like shamanistic gifts tend to be affected more by solar storms and full moons and stuff than normal people.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's true,
Heard that too.
but
I think so.
that's what the shamans say.
Because a lot of those people are more sensitive, so it would make sense that they might get affected more strongly. Well, maybe other people are affected as much, they just don't realize it
Maybe.
because they're not as sensitive to it, so they're not perceiving it.
This makes me wonder, is there a connection between electromagnetic energy and magic power or magical ability? Because, as you're aware of, there's a device called the God Helmet that makes people have visions of the divine or God or spiritual things like OBE, out-of-body experience, and they will have visions. It costs $650 online. And
Yeah, you showed me that online.
what it
right,
is
right.
is magnets that go on your head and electromagnets, and they make strong electromagnetism in a certain region of your brain, and it makes you have spiritual visions, like like magic shit, right? So
I don't know.
why is it that the God Helmet giving you electromagnetic energy, full moons giving us electromagnetic energy, solar storms giving us electromagnetic energy, all have something to do with altered states or mood or sightings of paranormal beings? You know, I think there is a correlation there. And then
Oh, yeah,
Also-
I think so, but I can't offer any opinion on it. I mean, other than explanation, or I have no opinion really. I don't understand it.
and if you look at
But I think it is definitely true. But what else can we say about it?
so another thing that was interesting is the interview that I did with Mel Scahan from Yakima, Washington. He said he had the shaman ceremony with the shaman, remember? And he blacked out all the windows and turned off the power breakers for the house, and then the Bigfoot was able to interact with them inside.
Oh yeah, right.
You hear about the witching hour, which is supposed to be the activity when these cryptids and these strange interdimensional beings are more active. And then you hear about the shaman blacking out all the curtains and turning off the electric box in order to interact with the spirit of the Bigfoot and all these other spiritual things. And you have to wonder, what is light and what does electromagnetism have to do with shamanism? Why did it affect his results? Why did he need darkness? Why is a witching hour a thing? You know what I mean? Why is it a thing? Why do they like the dark? I don't think it's as simple as, they just like to be in the dark so people can't see them. I think there's some kind of reason with magic that has to do with that. The reason I'm bringing all this up, all these correlations that I have with interdimensional travel and portals and Bigfoot being seen, 88% more sightings during a full moon. Yeah, there's more light, but is it
really?
88%.
Really? 8%. Wow.
I looked it up.
Wow.
I was researching if there's more sightings during a full moon of Sasquatch.
Really?
And 88% more sightings during a full moon. So interdimensional travel
Okay.
is linked to time distortion, skipping through the air, the creatures, weird movements. It's linked to time freezing, time changing when you go to the other realities. It's linked to electromagnetic energy for some reason, full moons, solar storms, stuff like that. Maybe interdimensional travel is easier during high electromagnetic activity, and maybe that's why there's certain places on Earth in electromagnetic lines, like ley lines or whatever, that have more interdimensional activity, more paranormal.
That's why they built, pyramids and those ancient structures on those lines,
like
so that
like
tap into
Skinwalker Ranch. Maybe that's on or Sedona or whatever.
Could be, yeah. I know the place you're talking about, I think.
So what's going to happen when we have a pole shift and our magnetic field completely shuts down for a period of time and we're blasted with electromagnetic energy from the sun? What's going to happen to us? Is it going to open portals like crazy and the barrier between worlds will be completely ripped asunder and we'll just see all these weird beings everywhere? Is it going to open portals?
Are you asking me? I've thought about it. I've heard that that could very well happen, but we could also just all die too. I don't know.
I found another place in Nome that I'm going to check out summer. It's called the Devil's Door, and it's a cave maybe 80, 90 miles away from where I live. I can drive most of the way there. And anyone who goes into it never returns and has never came out.
And you want to go in?
Might send a drone in or something, like a remote control car with a camera. I don't know. It might just be filled with poison gas, or it's a portal.
Well, you say they just don't return.
They go missing.
Nobody
Nobody knows where they go. They're just gone. Erased.
buy a cheap drone, man. Don't buy a $2,000 one, and send it in to be continued. I can't wait to. I'd like to go.
I don't know. I got some brave friends that I'm gonna take with me, and hopefully I can get my hands on some kind of RC car camera or something with a wire, so I don't die or disappear and end up in another reality, or end up.
But it's supposedly like a portal that opens up, and then, or is it always open?
No,
or
they don't say portal. That nobody says portal, but anyone who goes in it just doesn't come out. They go missing.
But is it like a cave? What is it like physically? Is it a cavern or
it's a cave?
Okay, it's a cave. That's what I mean.
And then if you go in it, it's like nobody ever
word.
come out. It's like a cavern. Yeah, it's like a tunnel in the earth.
Okay, and once you enter it, you don't come back.
Yeah, so we don't know why. It's either it's filled with poison gas, and there's dead skeletons of humans in there who tried to go in there. They breathed it in and passed out instantly, or it's
or some monster, something
or
killing them,
people, or some creature killing people, or it's a portal to another dimension. Because I know of Native American stories of caves that if you go in them, you can end up somewhere else, in another time or another world. There's permanent fixtures like that.
Yeah, I've heard of that.
A doorway in another village in Alaska, then one near me, a cave, and supposedly, I mean, the doorway, we don't know what that is. I can only imagine since it appears sometimes.
Damn, I'd like to go with you to check that out.
If any of you have thoughts on the content we discussed in this video, or in this conversation, please be sure to comment and share your ideas with us, because I don't think we covered every possible aspect.
You think?
Yeah. All right, so if you guys liked the video, be sure to subscribe and like, and we'll be talking to you guys some other time.